rode alongside individuals who are keeping this place intact through sheer determination and countless hours of unpaid effort. Silence enveloped the room. Some among you were aware of the unfolding events. Not everyone did. But from this moment forward, that lack of knowledge will no longer serve as a justification. He halted, surveying the space. Phoenix, Fresno, and others are operating hazardous equipment. Drivers who voice their concerns are facing retaliation from dispatchers. Technicians are being pressured to approve repairs that remain unfinished. Drivers are avoiding medical appointments due to fears of losing their routes. We ought to be above this, or at the very least we should strive to be. He exited the stage, indifferent to the clapping that never came. That afternoon he gathered his executive team in the operations war room. The atmosphere was tense. The catered sandwiches in the corner remained untouched. Rowan placed a hefty folder on the table and flipped it open. All regional managers are currently under evaluation. I have no interest in quarterly KPIs. I seek direct experiences. Beginning tomorrow, each of you will immerse yourselves in a depot that is not your own for the duration of 1 week. You will engage with the floor operations, operate the trucks, and report to the shift lead. No preferential treatment. There are no easy paths. An executive lifted his hand. What precisely are we seeking? You'll recognize it when someone inquires about the disappearance of their overtime or the lack of response to their safety complaint. You'll recognize the moment when you spot someone inspecting a damaged brake line, armed with a flashlight and a hopeful wish. For the following month, peace reigned without a single dispute. Rowan observed as the organization started to yield, not break bend. Gradually, meticulously, and with determination. Rosa in Fresno has successfully submitted a request for a full-time mechanic crew, and it has received approval. Angela finally had a second dispatcher to share shifts with, and her tone on calls transformed from sharp to calm. In Phoenix, Wendy took decisive action by grounding 4 rigs until the necessary parts arrived. Central remained unyielding. Rowan enlisted Lisa's expertise as a consultant to streamline the driver feedback systems. Her initial suggestion was straightforward. When someone shares their experience, trust their words. That's the complete solution. He established an anonymous hotline directly to his office for reporting retaliation or safety concerns. In just 2 weeks, it became inundated, not with trivialities, but with intricate patterns, file numbers, dates, and names. He absorbed the essence of each person. One afternoon he returned to Phoenix unexpectedly and strolled through the yard, clean-shaven and without his badge, only himself. Jerome strolled toward a trailer, clipboard in hand. He came to a halt upon spotting Rowan. Rowan gave a slight nod. Would it be all right if I joined you on your journey? Jerome cast him a glance that was part amusement, part wariness, yet he nodded once. You still remember the technique for securing a pallet? They set off just after noon, cab windows slightly ajar. Are you intending to implement this in all locations? After a moment, Jerome inquired. Rowan stated, It's not solely about me. Is everyone who is working upstairs? Jerome wrapped his fingers against the wheel. Finally, it's here. For years we've been shouting into the void. They traveled along an expansive stretch of highway. The sun blazed overhead, yet the stillness in the cab was not born from unease. It was tranquility. Upon their return, Rowan made his way to the break room, where Wendy was busy affixing a new notice to the corkboard. What is that? He inquired. She took a step back. Opportunities for advancement, emerging positions, development pathways, salary increase schedules. We will begin to focus on internal promotions. Clarity. He reviewed it carefully. Excellent. She faced him. A number of these individuals have spent a decade seeking recognition and respect. They are quite impressive. They simply required someone to truly see them. Then let's ensure we focus directly on them. The following morning, Rowan entered the Dallas headquarters, armed with a fresh strategy. A reserved operations analyst named Deshawn, who had never uttered a word in meetings, developed a regional scoring tool that correlated safety flag delays with manager overrides. It revealed connections previously unnoticed, not due to their absence, but because the right inquiries had never been made. Rowan assigned Deshawn a fresh title along with a team to lead. He established it as a policy. No depot manager shall be permitted to override more than 2 safety violations each month without providing written justification and obtaining verification from a mechanic. Any report of retaliation linked to a manager would initiate an automatic audit. 3 chances, and they were done. A week later, an audit in El Paso uncovered a troubling pattern of stacked routes, compelling drivers to endure consecutive shifts without adequate rest. The manager asserted that it was inevitable. Rowan took to the skies with a sense of detachment, engaged with the drivers, and dismissed the manager that very evening. There are no do-overs. However, not every solution involved a dismissal in Richmond. A dispatcher named Carla had repeatedly displayed a lack of courtesy towards drivers, frequently dismissing them during calls. Rowan had personally flagged her after listening to a recording. He made his way to the depot, seeking a direct conversation with her. Initially, she appeared guarded, her arms folded tightly across her chest. "I manage a fleet of 20 trucks on my own. I don't have the luxury to indulge anyone." Rowan remarked that while coddling isn't necessary, raising your voice isn't the answer either, though she paused before continuing. "Have you ever experienced the chaos of 4 radios blaring simultaneously, while someone is yelling about a delayed tire change?" He nodded. "I possess." A subtle change flickered across her features. He mentioned that he would bring in a second dispatcher, but requested that you participate in a coaching session. A single caution. "Should it occur once more, we will go our separate paths," she acknowledged with a slow nod. "Just." 2 weeks later, he received a voicemail from a driver expressing gratitude to dispatch for finally acknowledging their humanity. Wasn't flawless. Transforming systems is never easy. Change had transcended mere buzzword status. It was evident in the scheduling boards, in the grounded trucks, and in the way drivers no longer flinched at the sight of corporate personnel walking through the yard. Rowan wrapped up the quarter with a company-wide message that was brief, straightforward, and lacking in refinement. He captured it from the driver's seat of a running truck. "I have erred. I relied too heavily on figures and not enough on individuals, yet I have come to recognize the truth, and there is no turning back from it. If you feel overlooked, I'm here to hear you. If you've faced injustice, we will rectify it. If you've been the one causing harm, your time is up." He didn't conclude with a catchphrase, simply turned off the camera and sent it. By the month's conclusion, 3 significant changes had unfolded throughout the company. Initially, each depot featured a rotating leadership model, where an individual from corporate would collaborate with the crew for 5 days every quarter. The minimum requirements for mechanic staffing have been increased. Every depot must have a minimum of 2 certified full-time mechanics available on site or reachable within an hour's radius to ensure proper operation. Additionally, there was a 3-fold increase in internal promotions. Individuals who had long been disregarded were rising to leadership roles, not due to a mere opportunity granted by others, but because they had truly earned their place and were finally recognized. As the sun sank beneath the skyline, Rowan entered his office one evening. The boots remained by the door, remnants of dust from Fresno and Phoenix adhering to the soles. He left them uncleaned. He abandoned them in that place as a reminder for himself. He grabbed the most recent report from Deshawn's team. After more than 3 years, there has been a notable decline in preventable maintenance-related incidents across all 20 depots. He reclined, releasing a breath. Not due to the completion of the task, but rather because at last it had commenced. 8 years. Primarily agricultural shipments. We transport fertilizer feeds and occasionally equipment. What about the equipment? Outdated materials, local agreements. The compensation isn't substantial, yet the consistency is there. They encountered a stretch of road that shook the very structure. Cole instinctively reduced his pace. "Let me share something with you," Cole said after a moment. "There was a time when we had 2 mechanics on the premises. Now it's merely an individual who shows up 2 times a week. If an issue arises during your journey, you'll have to handle it independently." Rowan remained silent. He was already aware of the contents of the logs. All equipment has been cleared for travel and there are no reported issues. At the loading site, a figure clad in overalls signaled for their attention. He remarked that you were late. Cole remained unfazed. Needed to bleed the brakes twice just to make it out of the yard. The man let out a low grunt and began gesturing for them to take their places. As they retreated, Rowan caught sight of a boy, perhaps 12 or 13, perched on a stack of pallets behind the fence, observing the activity. His jeans were coated in dust, and his sweatshirt offered little protection against the biting wind. "Is that child meant to be present here?" Rowan inquired softly. Cole averted his gaze. "That's the son of Javier. He lingers there nearly every day. His father navigates Route 3. Daycare is beyond my budget. Are you for real?" "Indeed. He remains in that spot, waiting for his father to return." Rosa is aware. Everyone does. Silence envelops the room. Rowan gazed out the window once more. The child's gaze was fixed on the rig, unblinking. Once back at the yard, Rowan lingered until Cole had strolled away, then made his way to the break room. Within the confines of the room, the walls stood stark and unadorned, save for a calendar, pinned up and a handful of worn safety posters clinging to the surface. A woman lingered at the table, her fingers pressed against her temples, a half-eaten sandwich lying neglected beside her. "It was a long day," Rowan inquired. She glanced upward, taken aback. "Apologies, I didn't notice your arrival. My name is Rick. Just arrived. Angela, management and distribution. It varies with the day, sometimes it's HR." Her lips remained uncurled. "Rosa mentioned that you take care of the majority of the paperwork," Rowan said. Angela gave a slow nod. "If it passes through, this depot I have witnessed it. Have you ever pointed out something that remains unresolved?" Angela paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. "It would be best to consult Rosa. I'm reaching out to you for that purpose." Angela gazed at her sandwich, lost in thought for a moment. "Last month, our driver Hector arrived with a torn landing gear bracket. I designated it as unsafe. Rosa consented, yet the truck was back on the road just 2 days later. No entries for repairs. Who approved it?" Angela's voice lowered. "Manager of the depot, Alan Keller." Rowan had yet to cross paths with Alan, but that encounter was on the horizon. He discovered Rosa by the garage, engaged in conversation with a driver regarding a delayed shipment. Upon catching sight of Rowan, she gracefully moved to the side. "Is something the matter?" she inquired. "There's a child perched outside the fence daily, vehicles zooming by with reckless abandon, and a mechanic who shows up less frequently than the vending machine attendant." Rosa crossed her arms. "Do you want the reality or the narrative I present?" "To the auditors, I desire both." She observed him intently. "Alan states that we cannot seek external assistance unless we reach a significant threshold, but he determines what that threshold is, so unless a truck spontaneously combusts, it seems it doesn't qualify." "What's the story with that kid, Javier's son? We don't take pride in this decision, but it's either that or leaving the boy home alone. Do you really believe we haven't sought assistance?" Alan claims it's a private issue. Rowan's jaw clenched. Where could he be? Rosa gestured towards the office trailer situated at the far end of the yard. Alan Keller stood tall, dressed in a crisp collared shirt with sleeves rolled up neatly, his boots shining without a hint of dust. He was engrossed in his phone when Rowan entered the room. "How may I assist you?" Alan inquired, his gaze barely lifting. Rowan closed the door softly, sealing off the world outside. "It would be beneficial to begin by addressing the reasons behind your drivers operating unsafe trucks and the situation of a child being left alone outside your facility each day." Alan's eyes fluttered open and shut. "Greetings, I am Rowan Fisher. I am the owner of this company, and I have spent the entire day tending to your yard." Alan straightened with deliberate care. "Listen, I'm not sure what information you've received, but this depot operates efficiently. There's no space for additional items, and we have targets to fulfill. You manipulated a safety override on Hector's truck. That was a decision made in the moment. The bracket held steady throughout the week. You lack the expertise of a mechanic. I have been engaged in this for 15 years. I can tell when something is capable of rolling." Rowan advanced with purpose. "Your actions have exposed my company to potential legal liabilities. A child was left unsupervised in a yard with active hazards. You overlooked personnel requests for essential support. Alan's demeanor shifted to one of steely resolve. Without my presence, this depot crumbles into disarray. No, Rowan replied. In your absence, it finally has the opportunity to function properly. Alan remained still. This is an error in judgment. Rowan pushed the door open. You have 10 minutes to gather your belongings. As Rowan returned to the lot, the news had already circulated. Rosa approached him, caught in a web of uncertainty. He's gone, Rowan stated. Effective immediately. You are in charge. Rosa appeared utterly astonished. I am not. I was taken by surprise. You've been overseeing this place for some time now. Now you have the title that fits perfectly. Complete authorization to seek repairs, personnel, and temporary childcare assistance for Javier's son. We will refund every cent, she agreed, gradually regaining her balance. Another dispatcher will be necessary. Angela is sinking beneath the waves. Please proceed with submitting the request. Seek her assistance. As Rowan prepared to depart, he cast a fleeting look over his shoulder at the distant fence. The young lad remained, clutching a backpack tightly against him. He strolled over. The boy, son of Javier, nodded with uncertainty. Rowan knelt low. Your father is performing admirably. We will transform this into a more positive environment for both of you. The boy remained silent, yet his gaze held steady, unwavering. Rowan rose to their feet and gazed out over the expanse of the yard. Fresno was merely another fragment in the grand tapestry. Yet with each thread he tugged, the same undeniable truth surfaced. It wasn't merely a handful of ineffective leaders. It was the very reason they managed to cling to power for such an extended period, and he was far from finished in his quest to unearth them. Rowan occupied a seat in the back row of the quarterly operations review, arms crossed in a thoughtful manner. He never intended to find himself in this situation, yet after witnessing the state of his own company, enduring a conference filled with slick PowerPoint presentations and rehearsed applause, felt akin to observing someone tidy up in a house engulfed in flames. The speakers monotonously discussed efficiency improvements and streamlined routing, yet the figures failed to capture the experience he had just endured. 2 weeks on the road, collars drenched in sweat, boots encrusted with dust, absorbing the unvoiced reality echoed by the employees. No one above was paying attention. As the final slide concluded, he rose and the crowd shifted their attention. Some beamed, anticipating a swift expression of gratitude from the CEO. He remained expressionless. He suggested we forego the closing remarks. I have an additional point to make. A handful of individuals adjusted their positions in their seats. I spent 2 weeks in disguise, immersing myself in the yards, traveled the paths. He declined. Next week I'll be working consecutive shifts for 3 days in a row. He strolled. They arrived at the Mesa drop-off shortly after 8. The receiving dock had only 2 individuals managing 5 bays. Rowan assisted with the unloading, remaining silent and observant. One of the receivers appeared weary, his hands shaking slightly as he completed the shipment paperwork. Once again on the journey, Lisa decided to stop at a gas station. She chose not to enter. Instead, she remained still in the cab, gazing out through the windshield. "Are you okay?" Rowan inquired. She inclined her head with deliberation, feeling quite weary. "Last night my child was running a fever, hardly got any rest. Yet Darren remains indifferent. Contacted once last month, when my mother experienced a stroke. My hours have been reduced for the next 2 weeks." Rowan's voice held a soft, subdued quality. "Your hours were reduced for prioritizing your family responsibilities." Lisa averted her gaze from him, claimed I lacked dependability, then handed my Friday route to someone who struggles to back into a dock without knocking over a cone. Rowan's jaw clenched. "Did you inform HR about that?" Lisa truly chuckled. "Human resources? Are you referring to the woman who occupies a cubicle in Dallas and hasn't been near a truck yard since her college days? Absolutely, I'm certain she would appreciate it." The journey back unfolded in a quietude that enveloped them completely. Rowan was starting to realize that this situation extended beyond just a single faulty truck or an indifferent manager. It was a way of life, one that penalized truthfulness and celebrated quietude. At the depot, Rowan re-entered the maintenance bay once more. Felix lay on his back beneath another trailer, welding sparks illuminating the darkness around him. "Are you available for a moment?" Rowan inquired. Felix emerged, beads of sweat cascading down his temple. "I have a question," Rowan articulated with caution. "Who is responsible for approving repair requests once they are submitted?" Felix propped himself up. "It varies. If it's pressing, it ought to be directed immediately to corporate. However, Darren screens everything prior to its dispatch. Claims he's focusing on what's important. Have you ever encountered a task labeled as urgent that remained unfinished?" Felix brushed the sweat from his brow. "Just last week, the air compressor on Unit 73 developed a cracked line. I marked it as hazardous. Darren reduced it to a monitoring status. I had to secure it with a zip tie to prevent any further leaking." Rowan squinted, his gaze sharp and focused. Felix nodded, confirming that the truck was still out. "Ventured out this morning." Rowan remained silent. There was no obligation for him to do so. As dusk settled, he lingered in the break room, patiently biding his time until the majority of the drivers had departed. Wendy sat at the folding table, meticulously reviewing the shift rosters. He positioned himself opposite her. "Wendy," he uttered, "may I pose a question that isn't for public consumption?" She glanced upward, a mix of caution and intrigue in her eyes. Who would be aware if there was someone at this depot tampering with maintenance records? Wendy remained utterly still. That would be Darren. He approves each report with his signature. The corporation allows him to oversee his own accounts. Have you ever witnessed him alter a report? "I've witnessed a myriad of experiences," she remarked, thoughtfully. "However, I also have a mortgage and 2 children to consider. Are you looking for a spotless home?" "Begin with the office located on the upper floor." Rowan rose to their feet. That's the strategy. The following morning he arrived without his boots. He donned a standard-issue button-down shirt paired with slacks. He no longer had his beard. He strode confidently into the depot's front office, brushing past the surprised receptionist, and pushed open the door to Darren's office without so much as a knock. Darren sat at his desk, fingers dancing across the keyboard. He glanced upward, a look of bewilderment on his face. "How may I assist you?" Rowan closed the door softly, sealing off the world outside. "Indeed. This morning a truck with a cracked airline was dispatched, and you've been diligently revising safety reports to address the issue." Darren's expression wavered. "May I inquire about your identity?" Rowan advanced with purpose. "Rowan Fisher, this company is mine." Darren sprang to his feet. "Excuse me, could you clarify that? I have spent the past 2 days tending to your yard. I've had my fill, I've seen enough." Darren's voice took on a guarded quality. "We've faced quite a bit of pressure lately. The approval process for parts has been sluggish on the corporate side. You have been creating false reports. I aim to maintain momentum. We're currently facing a shortage of staff, and if I postpone the trucks, we risk missing our deadlines." "You endangered lives," Rowan stated, his tone unyielding. "You took action against employees, overlooked safety concerns, and silenced those who raised their voices." Darren's complexion drained of color. "This can be resolved. Simply grant me an opportunity. Your opportunity has passed. It's complete. Gather your belongings. Help is on the way." Rowan exited the room, leaving no room for a reply. He spotted Wendy by the dispatch board and presented her with a neatly folded paper. "What is this?" she inquired. "Provisional power. You will serve as the site manager in the interim until we secure a permanent replacement." Her eyes grew large with surprise. "Are you really serious? This place has been held together by sheer determination and resourcefulness. It's time to get it done properly." She took a deep breath. "What's the situation with the trucks and the repairs?" "I have already reached out to central procurement. A team of mechanics will be flown in by Friday. Until that time, ensure that every truck failing a complete inspection is grounded. Absolutely no exceptions." Wendy nodded slowly, her mind reeling. "And Lisa," Rowan added, "reclaim her Fridays." He stepped into the yard, where the wind stirred up dust across the lot. After what felt like an eternity, he finally sensed the freedom to breathe again. Yet this was merely 1 yard, and he still had 19 more to traverse. Rowan entered the Dallas headquarters 2 days later, tie slightly askew, eyes heavy from the journey. The Phoenix sight had unsettled him, yet it was the profound silence that followed that resonated even more deeply. None of the higher-ups had pointed out Darren's conduct. Years of neglected upkeep and cycles of retribution went unchallenged by anyone. That wasn't an issue with the staff. It was pervasive. He strode directly past reception and made his way down the third-floor corridor to the operations wing. The door to the regional compliance office stood slightly open. Within the room, a man clad in a crisp shirt and gleaming shoes was tapping away at his keyboard, his gaze firmly fixed on the monitor before him. "Jason," Rowan stated, voice resolute. Jason glanced upward, taken aback. "Mr. Fisher, I was surprised to see you return before next week." Rowan entered the room and closed the door softly behind him. "Please retrieve the maintenance override authorizations for the previous fiscal quarter. I would like to find out which depots had safety concerns that were subsequently downgraded. I expect to see the names linked to each of those decisions." Jason paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. That's quite an abundance of information. Patience is required. The deadline is set for the end of the day. Rowan began to walk away, but then hesitated. "Begin with Fresno, El Paso, and Richmond. I sense something brewing." He was already on the phone with the Fresno depot before Jason had even risen to his feet. His instincts were spot on. Fresno's statistics appeared tidy, yet the repair budget had been slashed by almost 30% in the past year, even as the accident rate continued to climb. He chose not to await further updates. He laced up his familiar work boots and set out into the early morning darkness the following day. The yard in Fresno was more compact compared to that of Phoenix. Reduced docks, aging trailers, a more streamlined team. He parked behind the east gate and entered through the side entrance, maintaining the same cover as Rick, a trainee in his first week. The initial sound that caught his attention was a harsh, jarring clash of metal against metal, irregular and grating. The forklift in the yard was unmistakably straining as it ground its gears. It went unnoticed by all. A woman clad in a bright neon vest gestured for him to come closer. "Are you the newcomer?" "Absolutely, Rick. Just getting underway. Rosa Morno leading the yard. Today you'll be accompanying Cole on Route 9. Rowan trailed. Behind her, moving past the dispatch board where a lanky figure in a flannel shirt and a faded ball cap was poring over a manifest. He hardly lifted his gaze. "You, Rick?" he inquired. "That's who I am. I trust the dust won't be an issue for you. We are making our way into the valley." They ascended into the cabin of a square-shaped truck, featuring a shattered windshield and a battered fender. Cole remained quiet during the initial stretch, merely chewing gum and keeping the radio at a low volume. The roads tightened as they departed the city, making their way to a rural distribution point unfamiliar to Rowan. "Have you been here for a while?" Rowan inquired. "What do you mean the brakes failed on a loaded rig?" Rowan Fisher inquired, his voice low yet tense. The atmosphere in the conference room became hushed. He surveyed the array of department heads gathered at the lengthy table, each one engaged in discussions about safety and HR operations. No one looked him in the eye. Rowan managed a national shipping company that his father had established from the ground up. 20 distribution centers, more than 500 trucks operating daily. 5 years ago he inherited it, and with the urgency to expand he constructed it rapidly, perhaps too rapidly. He now occupied his glass office, far removed from the road, receiving curated reports and refined figures. However, this situation was truly unfortunate. A seasoned driver almost lost control on a mountain curve near Flagstaff due to brake failure. Rowan perused the incident report the previous evening. No injuries, thankfully, but it had the potential to be fatal. The safety manager attributed the issue to the truck's age. The maintenance logs appeared satisfactory in documentation. Rowan held a deep skepticism towards paper. He reclined slightly. "Who is the site manager in Phoenix?" "A Darren." "Darren Mills," stated the logistics chief. Rowan gave a slow, deliberate nod. Please provide a list of available driver trainee positions. I'll handle it from here. He faced no inquiries from them. They were aware of the truth. 3 days later, Rowan arrived at the Phoenix depot in his own pickup, sporting a thick beard, glasses, and a deep tan from a week spent under the sun. He wore a name badge that read Rick. He had yet to encounter the personnel at this site. There's no need to. It had consistently been one of the strong performers with low turnover and solid delivery metrics. Yet there was an unsettling feeling about that break report. He maneuvered his vehicle to the rear of the warehouse, then approached the break room door, a duffel bag casually draped over his shoulder. A slender figure clad in steel toe boots and a worn ball cap assessed him with a swift glance. "Text, are you the new guy?" she inquired, picking up a clipboard. "Absolutely, Rick," she agreed, "beginning today." Wendy Lane, overseeing the floor operations. "This week you'll be accompanied by Jerome on your ride. He's out behind the building inspecting the tires. I trust you remembered to pack your gloves." Wendy was straightforward and effective, avoiding trivial conversation, yet maintaining a cordial demeanor. She guided him through the bustling dock lanes, the sound of forklifts humming in the background. The atmosphere was thick with the pungent scent of diesel mingled with the acrid odor of sweat. A man in his 60s knelt beside a battered vehicle, peering intently at the wheel well. "Jerome," there was a call from Wendy. "This is Rick, your apprentice." Jerome rose deliberately, his hands being cleaned on a rag. "Here we go again." He examined Rowan closely. "Do you have any genuine experience behind the wheel?" "Some," Rowan remarked. "Primarily focused on local delivery tasks. Nothing of this scale," Jerome grumbled. "Time will tell." The initial warning sign appeared even before they departed from the yard. Jerome passed Rowan a clipboard featuring a pre-trip checklist. "No need to stress over it," Jerome murmured, gesturing dismissively. "Simply sign it and submit it. They simply don't read it," Rowan blinked. "However, are we meant to examine everything then? Indeed, it seems we are also in line for some additional compensation. Keep me posted on how that turns out." They ascended into the cab. The dashboard lights danced to life as Rowan twisted the key in the ignition. Jerome shrugged, questioning if that was a constant occurrence. "Only during the chill of winter. She continues to run." They departed 15 minutes later, transporting a complete load of auto parts to a shop in Tucson. The brakes had a soft touch, not quite failing but rather spongy in feel. Rowan remained silent. As they traveled along the interstate, Jerome suddenly gestured toward a rest stop in the distance. "Let's stop here for a moment. I need to verify something." Rowan trailed behind. The back tires showed signs of significant wear, with some areas revealing the steel beneath. "Goodness," Rowan murmured. "These ought to have been swapped out months ago." Jerome sparked a cigarette to life. "Sure, just have a chat with Darren. For weeks now we've been submitting requests for parts and repairs. Nothing returns." Rowan sensed a knot forming in his stomach. "Did you inform the manager?" "Absolutely. He claims it's beyond his level of responsibility. Corporate is tightening the belt." Rowan gazed intently at the tire. "This has the potential to be lethal." Jerome inhaled deeply. "Indeed, I conveyed that to him." That evening, Rowan strolled into the maintenance bay at the depot. A young mechanic named Felix was diligently welding beneath a trailer. "Do you handle the trucks here?" Rowan inquired. Felix propped himself up, raising his visor. His visage bore the marks of grease, a testament to his labor. "Is that what was expected? What do you mean by supposed to?" Felix surveyed his surroundings, then spoke in a hushed tone. "We're short 2 members. One left last month, the other sustained an injury and they were never replaced. I have the responsibility of managing 28 trucks on my own, and Darren. He continues to approve repairs that I haven't even begun." Rowan sensed his jaw tighten. "Hold on, he falsifies your reports." Felix paused. "I really need this job. My daughter is counting on me." Rowan gave a deliberate nod. "I understand your perspective." That evening, Rowan found himself in a modest motel room, gazing up at the ceiling. His hands throbbed, his back was in agony, and his thoughts surged uncontrollably. He believed that expanding the company involved delegating operations to the appropriate individuals. However, if this was occurring at one location, how many others were compromising standards? He was beyond furious. He felt a deep sense of shame. He retrieved his phone and accessed the employee roster. Tomorrow he would embark on an adventure with a fresh group. He would continue his journey until he witnessed everything firsthand. Something had gone awry, and he was determined to set it right, beginning at this very moment. Rowan arrived an hour before dawn the following morning, wearing the same work boots and sporting the same name badge. Rest eluded him as his thoughts churned relentlessly, replaying every moment from the day prior. He required more than just a single ride-along and a handful of overheard grievances. He sought understanding, designs, evidence. The dispatch board glowed brightly as he entered the break room. Wendy sat there sifting through paper logs, her coffee still untouched. "You're early," she remarked, her gaze fixed elsewhere. Rowan responded, saying they decided to seize the day early. She presented him with a fresh route sheet. "Today, you find yourself alongside Lisa. Path 24. She's transporting retail pallets to Mesa and then returning empty. This should be a straightforward run." Rowan stepped into the yard, his gaze landing on Lisa near the fuel pumps. She stood tall, her hair neatly secured in a tight braid beneath a well-worn hoodie. Her rig stood out with a cleanliness that surpassed many he'd encountered, adorned with a few personal touches on the dash. A tiny American flag magnet affixed close to the door handle. "Rick," she inquired, offering him a slight nod. "That's me." She examined him closely. "Ascend. I prefer to use my time wisely." Rowan eased into the passenger seat as Lisa began documenting the journey on her tablet. She glided with a precise, honed urgency, effective yet unhurried. As they drove away, he observed her gaze darting frequently between the mirrors, gauges, and windows. He inquired if I had been driving for a long time. Lisa clenched the wheel, firmly. Nearly 2 decades, initially focused on long hauls, but transitioned to regional routes once my child began school. He has reached the age of 12 now. She paused, questioning, "You enjoy it here? It's just a means to an end, nothing more." Silence enveloped them for several miles. The taxi jostled gently along the bumpy road. The sun had yet to rise, leaving only a delicate orange line tracing the horizon. At last, Lisa found her voice once more. "Have you heard the news about Jerome?" Rowan pivoted. "What is the situation with him?" "He has been seeking a transfer from this depot for several months now. Continues to face delays. They expressed that he holds immense worth and should not be let go. That's just a way of saying we're too understaffed to allow anyone to take time off." Rowan remained silent. That aligned perfectly with what Felix had mentioned. She cast a fleeting look in his direction. "Are you planning to remain here for an extended period?" "I'm just getting the hang of things," Rowan said thoughtfully. Lisa gave a single nod. "Allow me to offer you a piece of guidance. Stay focused and avoid probing too deeply, or Darren will overwhelm you with split shifts until you decide to leave." Rowan arched an eyebrow. That occurred to a few individuals, 3 to be exact. The previous individual was someone who marked a trailer that had a broken axle. Darren insisted he should go ahead and roll it regardless.